right?
If you are somebody who's only using a social media platform for a couple minutes a day, you wouldn't recognize that because you wouldn't be paying attention to numbers. You would just be paying attention to the posts that you're making. Clearly, he looks a little bit more than a few minutes a
Yeah, he
day.
looks at the data and everything.
Yeah.
You recall, was it last week or so, maybe a couple weeks ago, where Randy Pitchford was pretty much said, like, hey, all the real fans are going to buy Borderlands 4 for $80. You remember that, Vera?
Yes, my fellow kids. I also had to pay a lot of money for video games in the past.
That's right. That's right. It was, hey, if the real fans would do it, if you were a real fan, you'd just fork over and consume the money, right? And Randy Pitchford, by the way, is worth what did we say, Blabs? $30 million, right?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, like tens of millions of dollars. This is a guy, that 10 extra bucks.
He can afford it, no problem.
Yeah,
Oh,
not a big mover, right? When you come to Randy Pitchford, right? And he'll be worth considerably more once Borderlands 4 comes out. But he also wants to let you know that that statement 2 weeks ago. Listen, just a big misunderstanding on this right here. Big misunderstanding here. He was pushed back here on as he was on X. He said, this platform is wild. A few years ago, I saw a video of a cat messing with a crab. That cat was pawing at it, and the crab pinched the cat, blah, blah. It doesn't even matter. It's insane. So anyways, this guy goes, I saw something crazy too. A CEO of Gearbox Software made players feel bad and alienated them for not wanting to pay $80 for his game. This platform is wild right here. And naturally, the response to this is about as gaslighting as you could possibly get right here. And it comes back to, what are you talking about? He says, I'm sorry there was a misunderstanding. It's your fault, by the way. And he decided.
Oh my God! I ain't reading all that. I'm happy for you though, or sorry that happened. Holy
At Grok,
shit.
TLDR, please.
Yes, there you go. There we go.
Oof.
That's not TLDR. That's the same shit.
Yeah.
Here we go. Grok, TLDR this tweet. There we go. All right. So you can get the idea of what he was saying. Because, yes, he decided to write an
Even
entire
Grok's like, I don't know how to wrap this up for you.
All right, here it is. Randy Pitchford, Gearbox CEO, apologizes for the backlash over his real fans comment on Borderlands 4 potential $80 price. He clarifies he didn't mean to alienate fans, explains pricing isn't his call, but reflects industry trends like rising game budgets. Okay, we'll come back to that. And emphasizes his goal to entertain and add joy, not to take fans for granted. He asked for understanding, noting he's a creator trying to connect, not a perfect executive over here. But as a non-perfect executive, don't you have to say something about the rising game budgets, right? The idea that we're going to spend $300 million on a game that, or maybe we just spend, I don't know, $200 million on a game or $100 million on a game, right? To get it out. So the game doesn't cost $80. I don't know. It just seems kind of odd. And the gaslighting is very real. The idea of, I'm sorry that you misunderstood what I said type of thing. We see this.
It was very clear what he was saying. I mean, he even a couple of weeks ago had given the full explanation of, oh, the industry's shifting. And even back in the 90s, I had to pay $80 for a video game. It came across exactly the way that I believe he wanted to. He can, of course, apologize and say it was a misunderstanding. I'm not buying that BS, though. I mean, at the end of the day, he's a CEO, he's an exec, he wants to make as much money as possible. And when he says the absolute sincere truth is that I don't want anyone to pay any more than they should or are comfortable with, I don't believe that. You will always try to get as much money out of your customers as possible.
Yeah. Randy Pitchford and all executives will do that. 1,000%.
Yeah, and I'm not necessarily blaming them because ultimately that's what being a businessman is about, is making as much money as possible. That is what companies should do. But you shouldn't be going on social media saying, oh, you misunderstood. I don't want people to have to pay more, when clearly you do want them to pay as much money as possible. Right. So don't act like a relatable, normal person when you're not.
No, Randy Pitchford is not a normal man by any means. And once you get past the tens of millions of dollars in net worth, you probably no longer have a good grasp of reality. Just throwing it out there. Now, what was funny about this was Randy Pitchford wrote his giant article that he in response over here that we had to TLDR down. And then he quickly got bodied in response over here. Now I'm going to read this because this guy hit some big points here. It says, if you respected the players as much as you claim, and further have been doing this for as long as you claim, you wouldn't have said, if you're a real fan, you'll make it happen. This is not, that's not the kind of mistake a good CEO makes, respectively. Gaslighting and acting like it was the players who misunderstood what you said is not acceptable either. That's not an apology. That's a refusal of accountability. You're a CEO. Surely you've had at least some minimal training in public relations, but the statement you made suggests quite the opposite. As far as the cost of the game, don't try and justify it by blaming the market. You developers and CEOs, as well as your shareholders, have been waiting for an incident to happen that would allow you to increase the price of these games. The market is actually not heading towards the direction of vastly inflating game prices as you claim. There have been a multitude of game developers who have created beautiful experiences for players for only $50 to $60 in 2025. Yep. You guys aren't the victims in the industry. The players are as a result of your higher ups sitting in your executive boardroom with your shareholders trying to figure out how you can make more money from the players. You've yet to release an official statement to the tens of thousands of players you alienated with your comments. The best you can seemingly do is release a toxic gaslighting apology, yet again shifting the blame onto the players by acting as if they misunderstood what you said. It was pretty clear you had zero sympathy for players who were concerned about the prospect of Borderlands 4 costing $80. When you and your team start sharing player milestones over sales and paying your game journalists like those to act like those figures are true, we'll all know if the game does fail. One of the major things that caused it was your interaction with the players, the ones who pay the bills, and the blatant disregard you had for addressing their concerns. As a person, I wish you the best. As a CEO, this is not how you should have handled the situation.
Great statement.
Mic drop right there, for sure. And by the way, no response from Randy Pitchford.
Well, of course, because he got absolutely destroyed.
It's fun to see executives kind of put in their place at times in situations like this, and it to at least specifically be called out, because I do think that there is a strong disconnect, as I mentioned before, and it's good for them to know that. And ultimately, the only way that they're going to know is if people don't buy Borderlands 4.
Well, yeah, the only reason why these companies exist is because of the players. They're paying customers, and if you disrespect those people, whether that is going on social media and basically laughing in their face, calling them poor, or giving them a really bad product and expecting them to accept slop, regardless of how you respond or what it is, these people need customers. That's just what business is. And if you push people away, you're not going to have those individuals supporting you anymore, and they do need to realize that.
Here's the most interesting thing about this, and Blabs, I think you'll find this interesting, right? Mm. He responded back to somebody in that same thread saying, he was talking about how wild it is and stuff. And he also, this person was talking about many of us believed in Borderlands 4 and wanted to do well. But he said, I look at Twitter once or twice a day for a few minutes when I'm using the restroom. I don't really feel. He's talking about how he doesn't feel attacked. I don't care about feeling attacked. It's just always amazing and surprising to discover the edge cases of people who seem to be super invested in everything I post. I say edge cases because if a post gets, say, 100,000 views, I might get, say, 100 comments. That's 0.1% chiming in, an extremely edge case. Right?
If you are somebody who's only using a social media platform for a couple minutes a day, you wouldn't recognize that because you wouldn't be paying attention to numbers. You would just be paying attention to the posts that you're making. Clearly, he looks a little bit more than a few minutes a day.
Yeah, he looks at the data and everything.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say this about how the edge cases on social media are, right? I have one example for you right here. It's Concord, right? Dustborn is another great example of just the edge cases that led a game to ultimate failure, right? You have to respect the people on social media who are speaking about your games. Those edge cases are your most passionate fans. And that's the thing that's lost in here, right? Those are potential sales, which as a CEO, you're not respecting their buying power, which I think makes you a bad CEO in that situation. You have to respect your audience, your hardcore audience. And those are the people who care enough to speak to you about it. Just because they're edge cases doesn't mean they're wrong at all.
Correct. Yeah.
Assassin's Creed Shadows.
There
Go ahead.
is something I feel like we should just add to sum it up.
What? Like, if you're a broke boy, just say so.
There you go, man.
It's always
You're
great
a
to
broke
see
boy,
her.
just say so.
That's right.
That really is the mentality.
Dragon Age Veilguard, Concord, Dustborn, Assassin's Creed Shadows. You guys
Suicide
have all
Squad.
right. Go down the list. Tell me how those were edge cases. Those are pretty big edge cases. Just throwing it out there. And I'm not saying Borderlands 4 is going to be a failure by any means, but maybe it's just not going to be the success that it could have been with statements like this. Obey YouTube. Watch this video. It's suggested for you.